Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 64. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
Alrighty, so
I'm excited to see what we got on the menu for a case tonight.
Oh, the menu. That that almost makes me wish I had a cannibal case set up. But I do not.
Oh.
No.
Darn.
No, unfortunately. So yes, welcome everyone to this is our second week of 2 episodes a week. Don't forget to let us know what you think is going on, what you think of what we're doing and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, we're able to pump more out for you guys and, hopefully you're enjoying the cases. And once again, if you guys do have your own case suggestions, make sure to hit us up on our social media accounts.
That's right, because we have some case suggestions that I'm researching now that we should be pumping out shortly. So hang on for some of those. Because, yeah, we love that. I love anything that's brought to me that I was unprepared for. I love it. I like the challenge of it. I hate to say it, I love everything we're doing. And I love that we keep having new ideas and that we keep rolling with new things. So who knows what's going to happen next?
Yeah, just keep going.
Yep. All right, you ready for this?
Let's do it.
Here's your teaser.
Oh, boy.
Sergeant Frank Waddell of the Greene County Sheriff's Office in Tennessee was dispatched to Payne Hollow Road to investigate what he thought would be a routine disturbance call on a Sunday night.
Well, the name of the location right there automatically tells you something's going to go on.
Payne Hollow Road?
Yeah.
Thinking of Sleepy Hollow?
Well, just Payne and what we divulge in, it can't end well.
Okay, fair enough. So he was expecting like a car to have broken down or maybe an argument between two people, maybe even teens being teens. Instead, he discovered a pile of bodies by the side of the road.
Oh, God.
Yeah, a pile of bodies by the side of the road. So he radios in, to report what he found and call for backup. And then he gets out to take a closer look. Waddell heard a sound and found that things, and as he searched around, he found the last thing he expected to find near a pile of dead bodies. Lying in a ditch among the bodies was a toddler alive.
What? Oh, God.
Yep.
Oh, that sends shivers.
Although he didn't know it yet, Waddell had found the aftermath of a family crossing paths with the worst types of people at a rest stop off Interstate 81.
Rest stops can always be dangerous.
It's funny. My mother, when she travels, she's always like, I'll just leave at a rest stop. And I'm like, no, I'll pay for a hotel.
Yeah, no, I don't care who you are. That's not a smart move.
No, it's, I understand what they're there for, but it can be dangerous. So this is the insane case of Natasha Cornett and the murder of the Lillelid family. So Natasha Cornett was born on January 26, 1979, into poverty in rural eastern Kentucky. Now, I do want to say, I have been through that part of Kentucky, and I basically went down to West Virginia to kind of go through some of the Hatfield and McCoy historic sites, and I spent the night at a hotel, and I crossed over into Kentucky. And that is a very poor area. There's not a lot going on. Like, I was looking for breakfast, and I had to drive for a while to find an actual, breakfast place. So,
oh, wow.
Being born into poverty in that area, you're going to have a hard life. And there's not a lot to do there either.
Well, yeah, it's Kentucky. Corn's the most exciting thing, right?
There are big cities in Kentucky, but not along the border of West Virginia, no. So Cornett's mother, whose name was Madonna Wallen.
You're kidding me.
Nope. And keep in mind, she was named Madonna long before the pop singer.
Yeah, but okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
She was not married to Cornett's biological father. Her father was a local police officer named Roger Burgess, with whom Madonna was having an affair with.
Well, that's gonna start something.
Well, it's just, the whole thing just sets up it's a bad stage to start. So when Cornett was young, her mother left her husband, Ed Wallen, and Madonna raised Natasha alone as a single mother in a trailer located on the outskirts of Pikeville, Kentucky. By junior high, Cornett was alienated from her fellow students due to her unconventional behavior. At this point, she was suffering from anorexia and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which went largely untreated due to a lack of health insurance.
Oh, that's got to be rough.
Yeah, it's not again, stirring up a pot of not so great things. Sometime after her freshman year in high school, Cornett dropped out. At the age of 14, she was arrested for forgery due to the theft of a box of checks. And she was
Yeah.
And she was sentenced by the juvenile court to 1 year of probation.
That's it?
That's it. I'm going to
Wow.
guess she only tried to cash one check, maybe? I don't know. And it was stupid, and she's 14.
Yeah.
Cornett was arrested a second time for assaulting her mother.
Oh, shit.
And threatening to kill her with a knife.
Wow, that escalated quickly.
But her mother declined to press charges. On her 17th birthday, she went and got married to a longtime friend named Stephen Cornett, which is where the last name comes from.
Okay, all right.
However, Stephen ended their marriage after only a matter of months, and Natasha Cornett said that she was devastated by this. Cornett then began to embrace the Gothic subculture, which basically meant she wore a lot of black clothing, and according to the sources I found, I kid you not, this is how they describe it, and dark, doom-ridden music.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm like, so like King Diamond?
Oh yeah, right, exactly.
Black Sabbath. Yeah. So at the time, Cornett was also abusing drugs and alcohol and practicing self-mutilation, activities that she had been involved with since her early teen years. Now, other young people that had similar inclinations were drawn to Cornett, and she became this sort of informal leader of this group. Keep in mind, small town Kentucky. So this probably stands out a lot more than it would up here in like Boston.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So on April 6, 1997, Cornett was looking to escape what she saw as the boredom, poverty, and general unhappiness of life in Pikeville. She decided to take to the road with 5 of her friends. Edward Mullins, who was 19, Joseph Risner, who was 20, Crystal Sturgill, who was 18, Jason Bryant, who was 14, and Karen Howell, who was 17. They all decided to leave for a new life in New Orleans, Louisiana. And there were also rumors that these kids were involved in the occult and Satanism.
Of course, why wouldn't that just get thrown in the mix there?
Well, it's because of the Gothic subculture thing.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. And it's Kentucky. Of course they're going to be like, well, look how dark their clothes are. Of course they're Satanists. So now we need to take a look at her traveling companions. So Edward Mullins, who was 19, was born in 1978 in Harold, Kentucky. He had left school in 96 during his 12th grade year, but was working on getting his GED. Mullins had no criminal record and had been employed at a grocery store. Mullins' family and friends stated that his behavior worsened after he had met and started to get involved with Natasha Cornett, and apparently he allegedly planned to marry her.
Okay.
Yeah. So, she's 19. I'm going to be her second husband by the time she's 20. So Joseph Risner, 20, was born on October 13th, 1976 in Hazard, Kentucky. Risner was described as a satisfactory student with a good work ethic until his parents separated, which affected him emotionally. He had a history of marijuana use, alcohol use, and using LSD. Risner declined academically, failing in the 7th and 8th grades before he started to improve again once he got to the 10th grade, which, he completed at Betsy Lane High School. It was there that he met the other perpetrators in this story, including his girlfriend, Howell, who we'll talk about in a moment. Risner joined the Army in 1995, but received an administrative discharge after testing positive for marijuana use, which is lucky that's all he got, because they could have thrown him in the brig and dishonorably discharged him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I said the brig. He was in the Army. There is no brig in the Army. They could have thrown him in jail. Sorry. I was in the Marine Corps. It's the Navy thing. Brig. Yeah. Anyway. He earned his GED in 96. So he wasn't doing too badly overall. We get to Crystal Sturgill, who was 18, and she was born on March 13th, 1979 in Harold, Kentucky. Her mother refused to divulge the name of her father, and his name does not appear on her birth certificate at all. Sturgill's academic performance declined in high school, and she blamed that on drugs and alcohol. Sturgill had no prior criminal history, either as a juvenile or as an adult, but had been suspended from school on several occasions. Observers commented on the amount of emotional neglect Sturgill suffered in her home. In 1996, in December, she accused her stepfather of repeated sexual abuse.
Oh, God.
After the accusations, Sturgill moved in with her aunt in Prestonburg, Kentucky. She began attending Prestonburg High School in January of 97 and soon had to move out of her aunt's home. Doesn't really say why. She lived in approximately 13 different places
Holy shit.
from the time she made the allegations in December until the events that we're going to discuss here. Sturgill was good friends with Mullins and was critical of his relationship with Natasha Cornett. She had no history of violence or criminal record before April of 97. So if you think about that, from December to April, that's only like 4 to 5 months, and she lived in 13 different places.
Yeah, that's insane.
That means she wasn't able to stay in any place for longer than 2 weeks if you averaged it out.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah. So Jason Bryant, 14, was born on July 18th, 1982 in Hellier, Kentucky. He had a history, a 14-year-old, had a history of alcohol and drug abuse beginning in his early childhood.
Oh my God, what damaged him? Holy hell.
He met Natasha Cornett in Pikeville a month before the events. Bryant was the youngest of the group and was a legal minor at the time. That's all we know. I don't know anything about his life prior to that.
Oh my God. Well, I'm highly intrigued because that's something had to have happened for you to start that young.
I'm telling you, I just don't think there's much to do out in this area. That's my guess. They were like, you want me to try a drug? Let's try a drug. Yeah, that's my guess. And lastly, Karen Howell. She was 17 and was born on September 25th, 1979 in Delaware, Ohio. Her family moved to Kentucky when she was 3 years old, and her early childhood was characterized by severely violent fights between her parents until they divorced when she was 9.
Yeah, that's always a rough environment for a kid to deal with.
The fact that they're using severely violent is terrifying.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the father probably beat the mother.
Oh, at the very least, yeah. So Howell claimed that she had been sexually abused between the ages of 5 and 10 by her uncle and a cousin.
Ew, God.
Yeah, and she described herself as fearful of relationships. By the age of 13, she began self-mutilating, and she lived with her mother until she was 14, and the relationship at that point was stormy between the two, and they fought often. Howell had a history of resistance to rules and regulations, dysfunction in school, illegal drug uses, runaway behavior, and an interest in witchcraft, which began with a Ouija board and automatic writing. It's a lot. So
Wow.
for those who don't know, automatic writing is when someone holds a pen or a pencil and they supposedly allow spirits to use their body to move their hand and the implement to write messages. Her mother discovered this and brought in ministers to attempt to cast out the demons from Howell. Yeah, I kid
Oh,
you.
it's like something out of a bad horror movie.
Yeah, exactly. This is a bad horror movie right here. She also claimed that she had created love spells to get 2 boys to date her and that she heard voices. That last part may be true. She could easily be schizophrenic.
Yeah, the last part makes perfect sense.
So Howell moved in with her father briefly after her first semester of high school, although her father had rarely communicated with her. She then would quit school and work on getting her GED. By her early teens, she had begun abusing various drugs, particularly LSD. She otherwise had no history of violence nor a criminal record prior to the events that we're going to talk about.
Well, I mean, once you see the dragon, everything goes downhill from there.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta follow the white rabbit. I know I'm making a different reference. So Howell reportedly attempted suicide 4 times in the past, twice by cutting her wrist and twice by overdosing on drugs.
God damn it.
Yeah, she had met Cornett and Risner at school, and that's how this group came together.
Quite the band of misfits here.
Misfits is a good word for it, yeah. But now we need to meet the other side of this horrific case, the victims. At the same time that this group of outcasts, or misfits as you called them, were taken to the road, a family was traveling on those very same roads while on vacation. A Norwegian immigrant named Vidar Lillelid, who was 34, his American wife Delphina, who was 28, their daughter Tabitha, who was 6, and their son Peter, who was 2, were driving through Tennessee on April 6, 1997. Vidar Lillelid grew up in Bergen, Norway. He moved to the U.S. in 1985, where he met and married Delphina Zalaye in 1989. They met through their common involvement with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Delphina was born in New Jersey, though her parents were from Honduras. The Lillelid family was returning to their Knoxville area home from a Jehovah's Witness convention in Johnson City. Unfortunately for them, they were about to meet the kids who had just left Kentucky. So shortly after leaving Pikeville, Kentucky, Cornett and her friends realized that Risner's car wasn't going to make it all the way to New Orleans. They discussed the possibility of them stealing a vehicle from a parking lot or even a dealership. They were armed with 2 handguns, a 9mm and a .25 caliber. Cornett and her group of friends had stopped at a rest station along the way, where they basically were trying to decide what to do. And it's here that they encountered the Lillelid family. Now, I'm sure you know what Jehovah's Witnesses tend to do. They love to talk to people about their religion. They're constantly sort of recruiting.
Of course.
So Vidar, carrying his son Peter, approached Cornett and Howell to discuss his religious views with them. Risner and Bryant came over and decided they wanted to join in this conversation. There were eyewitnesses that observed the 6 youths in conversation with the Lillelid family. I'm guessing people coming and going. The first indication of trouble that Natasha Cornett received was a gut feeling that something was really wrong when Risner said he wanted to converse with Vidar about his religious beliefs. She said, quote, "That just brought up red flags because Joe was not a religious man. I tried to convince him that we should just leave and get on our way. Every step he took, I was there trying to prevent it," unquote. Cornett claimed during an interview that Risner initiated the kidnapping of the Lillelid family from that rest area by pulling a gun on the family. Risner is reported to have said, quote, "I hate to do you this way, but we're going to have to take you with us for your van," unquote. So that escalated fast.
Yeah, no kidding.
As Risner directed the Lillelid family into their van, Vidar pleaded with the group, offering his keys and wallet in exchange for being left at that rest stop, but Risner refused. After the family were kidnapped, they were then driven in their own van to the isolated Payne Hollow Lane off Van Hill Road, north of Baileyton. Risner, Bryant, Howell, and Cornett rode in the van with the Lillelids. Vidar drove while Risner, holding the gun on him, sat in the passenger seat. Mullins and Sturgill followed in Risner's car. In an attempt to calm her children down, Delphina began to sing to them. Bryant reportedly ordered her to stop singing. I'm assuming he found it annoying.
Yeah, probably. Or he felt like he was losing control of the situation or something.
Or he needed to exert further control, because that's how these type of people think.
Of course.
Risner directed the Lillelids first to the interstate and then to a secluded road at the next exit, which was Payne Hollow Lane. The Lillelids were then ordered out of the car, and they were lined up next to a ditch along the road.
Oh my God, the horror that must be going through their minds at that point.
Fucking crazy.
Absolutely not.
Cornett said that she tried to intercede with Risner and Bryant. Quote, I got in between Jason, Bryant, and the family to where the gun was pointed at me, and I tried to convince him not to do that, she said. I begged and I pleaded for what seemed like an eternity for him to stop. When I discovered that there was no stopping him, I begged for at least the children to be saved. He told me that if I didn't move, he would shoot me. I don't think I would have moved anyway until he promised and swore to me that he would not harm the children. That's when I moved. I didn't think there was anything I could do to prevent anything if I was dead. I thought I had more of an opportunity to convince him not to do anything if I got out of his way to where I could calm him down. Unquote.
Man, that's horrifying. And that's really ballsy to step in the way like that.
Is it though? I mean, think about, you and I have known each other for a couple of years now. If I pulled out a gun and I was going to shoot someone, would you really think I would shoot you? You're my friend.
At that point, I wouldn't know what to think. I mean, some people, they see white hot rage and they don't think. And
True.
Even if they may not know what had happened or what they did until it was too late.
True. I personally would, if you just suddenly pulled out a gun on somebody, maybe I wouldn't stand in front of the gun, but I would be there trying to talk you down. And I think that's what she was thinking, that there's no way he's really going to do it, so I'm going to get in the way. Until she realized, fuck, they're really going to do it. Yeah,
no, I completely understand. I just I would not have the balls to come anywhere close to anything.
Right. No, and it's tough to say what you would do for a group of strangers. So unfortunately, the entire Lillelid family were then shot.
That's so tragic.
So checking the bodies, Bryant stated, quote, they're still fucking alive, unquote, and then he shot them again.
Oh, God.
After removing the license plates from Risner's car, the group abandoned it there at the crime scene. Because, there's no way to identify a car without license plates, right? Fucking morons. And then these motherfuckers drove over the bodies with the van as they left.
No.
They fucking drove over them.
Oh, that's some audacity right there.
Yeah. So they continued their journey towards New Orleans in the van, leaving the family for dead. They stopped at a Waffle House while traveling through Georgia, as you do.
Yeah, because nothing says, we just killed a bunch of people stopping at Waffle House.
That's right. So they stopped at a Waffle House, but they left when a group of police officers arrived. Again, nothing suspicious there. Morons. They then decided, instead of going to New Orleans, they would just make a break for Mexico. Okay.
Seriously?
I'm not kidding. Now, I am sitting here because I record in front of the maps with all our flag pins.
Yeah.
And from where they started to New Orleans is far enough, probably like 8 hours, but it's twice that far to Mexico.
I was gonna say it's probably a 12 or 14 hour excursion to Mexico, right?
Yeah, it looks a lot longer. Yeah. I mean, I obviously don't really have a good idea for scale. I would say it'd be like driving from Boston to North Carolina, maybe a little further.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's not close, morons. So when they reached the border, they were initially declined admittance because they did not have the proper forms of identification. But they did eventually find another way around and got into the country, which isn't surprising. It's much easier to go from the US to Mexico than it is the other way.
Right. Yeah.
While in Mexico, Bryant was shot in the hand and the leg.
Oh my God, what?
Yeah, here's the funny part. The source of the wound is disputed within the group of defendants themselves. Okay.
Seriously?
Uh,
Oh my God.
yeah, I'm not kidding. So Bryant, the kid who is got the injuries in his hands and his legs, testified that Risner asked him to take the blame for the shootings because Bryant was a juvenile. He claimed that when he hesitated, Risner shot him in the hand and in the leg. The other defendants claimed that Bryant's wounds were self-inflicted for whatever reason. Okay.
What?
Yeah. So you got 5 of them saying this kid shot himself for whatever reason. But the other one, the one with the injuries, is saying he was shot for hesitating to take the fall.
That's absurd.
Who the hell knows? So later, the defendants were stopped by Mexican authorities. They claimed that they were lost, and the officers ordered them out of the van and conducted a search. During their search, they found a knife and a photo album belonging to the Lillelid family.
Oh my God, what morons.
Yeah. They then ordered the defendants to the border to re-enter the U.S. Now, American officers searched the defendants at Border Patrol and took them to jail in Arizona, which is where they were brought up. So let's keep this in mind. Tennessee to the Mexican border, somewhere, I'm going to assume the shortest route is Texas, so they got that far. But then they traveled far enough west so that when they were arrested or stopped by the Mexican authorities, the fastest way out of the country was Arizona. So they made it quite a distance, which blows my mind.
Yeah, that is quite impressive.
So at the time of their arrest, several of the defendants had in their possession personal items belonging to their victims.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Geniuses, sir. Geniuses.
Oh.
Dr. Cleland Blake, a forensic pathologist, testified that Vidar's body had 6 gunshot wounds, 1 to the right side of his head and 5 to his chest. The first shot entered his right eye, traveled through his temple, and exited in front of his right ear.
Damn.
Which means he was looking up at the person who shot him.
I can't even imagine that. Like, that's horrifying.
He must have been on his knees looking up at the person who shot him. That's so fucked. Now, while he could not be certain, it was Blake's opinion that this shot was fired from a 9mm handgun and would have caused at least a loss of consciousness. Vidar then fell to the ground on his back and was shot 3 times in the upper right side of his chest. The wounds were described as being consistent with those from a 9mm. A wound just below Vidar's nipple was consistent with a .25 caliber weapon, and a final wound from a 9mm was located just beneath that. This shows that he was shot by more than one gun and likely more than one person.
That's just overkill.
So Vidar most likely died within a few minutes of the initial gunshot to his right eye. Now Delfina, his wife, was shot 8 times. All 8 bullets were recovered. 6 were
shit.
6 were from a 9mm and 2 from a .25 caliber. The first shot from a 9mm shattered a bone in her left arm. The second shot from a 9mm shattered the femur in her left thigh. Okay, so they're just fucking torturing them.
Yeah, they're just making it last as long as possible here.
Now, Blake testified that these shots would not have killed her, but would have caused severe pain, leaving her unable to stand. Delfina was shot an additional 6 times while on her back, with the first 3 shots striking her left side. The 3 shots pierced her stomach, leaving a 4 to 5 inch tear, and traveled through her pancreas, spleen, left kidney, and left adrenal gland.
Holy hell.
A final 9mm entry wound was located at the midsection of her abdomen, just above her navel, and the bullet was recovered from her spine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
There was a .25 caliber gunshot wound under her left armpit where the bullet entered, coming to a stop in the skin on the back of her left shoulder. Another shot caused a wound to Delfina's left side, and the bullet was recovered from the center of her liver. Delfina's wounds were not immediately fatal, and she could have been conscious for as long as 25 minutes.
Holy crud.
Including when they ran her over with the fucking van.
Oh, no. Oh, God, no.
6-year-old Tabitha was shot once in the head with a small caliber weapon, with the bullet entering the left side of her skull, traveling downward and exiting behind her right ear. The wound caused immediate brain death, so she didn't suffer. 2-year-old Peter was shot twice with a small caliber weapon. One shot entered behind his right ear and exited near his right eye. A second gunshot penetrated his back and exited through his chest. He, having survived, was transported by helicopter to the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit at the University of Tennessee Memorial Hospital in Knoxville, where he was listed in critical condition. Peter required vigorous resuscitation, having sustained a contusion to his right lung with some residual bleeding in his right chest cavity. Doctors removed his damaged eye 11 days after the shooting.
Wow. Holy crud.
He remained in the hospital for 17 days before being transferred to a Knoxville rehabilitation center. Now, prosecutors said that Bryant was the only one they could prove was a shooter. But the prosecutor felt it wouldn't be just unless he convicted all 6 of them of murder.
I agree.
Do you? Does Natasha Cornett deserve the same fate as the rest of them, if her story is true?
Well, all right. So that's the thing. You got to figure out whether or not her story is true.
I know. She claims that she tried to stop the whole thing. Now, she shouldn't have gotten back in that car, or should have done something at that Waffle House when all the cops showed up. If she really didn't want to be held accountable, those were her moments.
Well, and that's kind of why I said what I said, because you have your opportunities to stop this. You have your opportunities to walk away. You have your opportunities to be morally good, and you didn't take them.
Right, and I 100% agree with you, except I'm not sure she deserves the same fate. That's all I'm saying.
All right, well, at least a fate. She can't be not held anywhere accountable.
Agreed. But here's what they decided to do. So, before jury selection was completed, a plea bargain was drawn up in which the death penalty would be taken off the table if all 6 pled guilty to first-degree murder. So, however, it was stipulated that all 6 defendants had to accept the deal, and they had to do so in a very short period of time, or prosecutors would seek the death penalty. So Howell has stated for the record that she wanted to fight it in court, but they were threatening to kill everyone, the death penalty, if she didn't sign the agreement. So she caved and she signed it.
I really, with that way you started that, I really thought she was going to continue to fight it.
They might all have been better had they fought it. So all 6 defendants signed, and in March of 1998, they were all convicted of felony murder as participants in a felony kidnapping and carjacking. Each received 3 life sentences with no possibility of parole, 1 for each murder, and an additional 25 years for the attempted murder of Peter. However, because they didn't go to trial, it was never determined which one of them had actually been to blame for the killings, or 2 of them, or 3 of them, or whatever. So court testimony was that Bryant had fired the shots, but the judge believed that at least one other member of the group might have also have done so, which is likely there are 2 different guns going off.
Yeah, that was my thought process.
Bryant admitted to Officer Deb McKee in Arizona that he shot Vidar. However, Officer McKee's testimony was not allowed as Bryant had not been read his Miranda rights before he made that admission.
Oh my God, seriously?
Yeah. He ended up
no.
changing his story later, saying that Mullins and Risner were the ones that did the shooting.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So Natasha Cornett is currently serving a sentence of life without parole in the Tennessee Prison for Women in Nashville, Tennessee. My favorite city, by the way.
Oh, yes.
So roughly 4 years after she entered her guilty plea, Cornett said she wanted those guilty pleas overturned and wanted a fair trial. Cornett hopes that during a new trial it can be shown who was individually responsible for what happened. However, regardless of who pulled the trigger, none of these kids, who are now adults, will ever be released from prison.
Good.
See, I don't know why that I 100% agree with that. You had a 14-year-old kid who may have really just been sucked up in the wave of it all. 14.
But you make one bad decision.
That's what manslaughter's for. That's what accessory is for. They drafted this terrifying plea deal, and all of these kids will now never get out of prison. I'm not saying they don't deserve to be there. Some of them clearly deserve to never get out. You know, a whole family was devastated. But I'm not sure that all these kids were equally liable. That's all I'm saying.
All right, I can see that. I guess I'm just a little bit more cold-hearted about it, I guess. I'm just like, I care more about the victims and...
Oh, it's not that I don't care about the victims, because I just think that at least 2, if not 3 of these kids that were involved were also victims of circumstance.
Okay, all right.
That's all. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Anyway, as for Peter Lillelid, the toddler who was shot, soon after Peter's medical condition stabilized at the end of April in 1997, a custody battle began between his maternal grandmother and his paternal aunt. So basically you have his mother's mother, who lives in Miami, Florida, fighting for custody, but his father's aunt, or his aunt on his father's side, wanting custody in Sweden.
What?
His aunt on his father's side, who lived in Sweden, she pledged to raise Peter in the faith and teachings of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and a judge awarded her custody in July of 1997.
Wow.
Weird to me, but...
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you.
So Peter was raised in the Stockholm area by his father's family. His family had this to say, quote, "He needs to go on with his life, and we want him to grow up as a normal child." The family told Peter about what happened to his family in the United States. He knows everything about what happened, but it's not fun for him to read about it in the media, unquote.
So, first off, there's no shot of having a normal life after that.
No, you're right.
No way.
Yeah, you're growing up without parents, but it can still be as normal as possible.
Right. No, and I get that, but like they made it seem like he's just gonna move on and be okay.
Right, agreed. And that's never going to happen. So as of 2007, when he was 12, he still had trouble walking because of his injuries. But by 2017, Peter had finished his IT education and was looking for work. In 2019, he moved back to the U.S. to pursue a career in technology. He got married in 2020, and he and his wife, Caitlin, live in Connecticut.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that is the case of Natasha Cornett and the Lillelid family. and her fucking group of nut bars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually learned about this case through, there was some stupid series. I don't know if it was on Netflix or whatever. And it was called something like Occult Killings or something. And I just sat there and went through it because I was bored. And this case was on there. And it's
Oh, no
considered,
kidding.
and it's considered that because these kids were, whatever. The one girl was dabbling with a Ouija board and they're all gothic. And the
Oh my
whole,
God, that's really what put it in there?
I swear to God. And I
That's
sat there.
messed up.
Yeah, and I sat there going, well, this is ridiculous. And so at the time, I didn't think much of it. But then once we started putting together the podcast, I was like, it took me a little bit because I didn't know where to find it. Like, I didn't know how to find the information I needed because I couldn't remember her name. And I don't even know. I think I must have just typed in enough, like in a Google search, to finally find her name. And I did write her a letter because, she's in Nashville. And I was in my head, I was like, man, if she gets back to me, I will gladly travel to Nashville again to do an interview.
Oh yeah,
But
you would be in your glory.
yeah, but she, after a year now, she has never written me back. So I'm going to
Oh,
assume that's not going to happen. Although I did find out via this Google search that Natasha Cornett at one point had like an online dating profile for convicts.
really?
Yeah, you have someone who's never going to get out of prison. So what is that about? I guess it's to keep them from, like, I don't know, killing themselves or something, feeling they have something to live for.
Give them false hope.
Something. It was just, I
My
sat
God.
there like, what the fuck? But, hey, more power to her,
Convictsonly.com.
right? Only cons. I unfortunately never heard back from her. I would love to hear more of her side of the story. Obviously, I'm not convinced she's as guilty as the rest of them, as well as the 14-year-old. I'm not even really sure about the two girls that were involved, the other two girls that were there. So, to me, I just think that the state of Tennessee really fucked them. But at the same time, it was a family that was killed. I don't know, maybe I'm definitely more of a liberal than you are.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, it's all good though. So yeah, so that is our case for this week or this weekend. I gotta get used to saying that.
Oh, it's quite interesting.
It's
Throwing an extra day in there, right?
It is. It's weird, and it's a little more work for me on the editing side. But you know what? I think it's worth it. We're getting more cases to all of you guys, our listeners. So thank you all again. So Jameson, we'll see you next Saturday, and I'll see you on our usual Wednesdays with Joyous. So once again, I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And we'll see you soon.